From the very beginning, The Legend of Zelda has been a series built on mystery. The original Nintendo Entertainment System game just drops you into a vast world. No real explanation of who you are. No grand opening cinematic. Just a quiet nudge towards your adventure. So it's Nintendo's design choice that feels pretty alien today, when most games begin with vast tutorials and loads of lore dumps. But for The Legend of Zelda, this sense of stepping into the unknown has always been part of the magic. As the series evolved, that sense of mystery has deepened. Nintendo has always treated Hyrule like a living myth, and never neatly organising the timeline. Stories contradict each other, and histories get rewritten. Ancient events are spoken in half-truths and legends, and even the official timeline, when Nintendo finally published one, did more to spark debate than actually settle that debate. So instead of clarification, it reminded everybody just how many gaps still exist. In most franchises, unanswered questions feel like loose threads, but in The Legend of Zelda, they feel like Nintendo making a deliberate choice. So to me, what makes these mysteries so enduring is they shape the tone and the texture of the entire world in The Legend of Zelda. Now, every temple feels like it's got a forgotten history, every symbol suggests some kind of deeper meaning, and every lost civilization hints at something powerful that has slipped through time. Given the games never explain anything outright, players are left with a sense that Hyrule is bigger than the stories that we're shown. There's always something just out of reach, some hidden truth or forgotten legend that's all waiting beyond the next hill or sealed behind that door. But the real engine behind Zelda's mysteries isn't Nintendo or the Zelda team, it's actually Zelda fans. Over the decades, players have become archaeologists, piecing together clues from item descriptions, murals, enemy designs, and even promotional art. Entire communities are formed around decoding details that the games barely acknowledge. Questions like what happened to Navi? Who created Majora's Mask? What lies beyond Termina? All of these things become jumping off points for theories, debates, and fan interpretations that sometimes take on the life of their own. I imagine you probably wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't interested in the mysteries of The Legend of Zelda, and few games or few franchises have inspired this level of collective curiosity among the fans. So these mysteries invite players to think, they invite you and me to speculate and have this conversation together. They create a sense of magic that exists not just on the screen, but in our thoughts about what might be hiding behind the curtain. Zelda keeps its world slightly out of focus, and in doing so it preserves a sense of awe that many modern games lose in their pursuit of clarity. So when we talk about the biggest unsolved mysteries in The Legend of Zelda, we do celebrate a tradition. It's one of the pillars of the Zelda team's design philosophy, a storytelling approach that trusts the players enough to leave some of the doors unopened. As long as Hyrule has secrets, its ancient tribes, artifacts with unknown origins, or worlds that behave like dreams, we are going to keep coming back. There's nothing more Zelda than feeling somewhere there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered. Okay, next I'm going to get into what I think are some of the best unsolved mysteries in The Legend of Zelda, but before I do that, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. I'm very, very close to 10,000 subscribers. I would love to get there before the end of 2025. Plus also, it'd be great if you could press that thumbs up button down below on the video. It really helps spread the word about this video, and also Triforce Times as the channel as well. And also I've got some really exciting new exclusive content coming to the channel which you can watch as a channel member. So check out the channel membership by joining down below. Not only are you going to get that exclusive content, but also early access to regular content too. And finally, let me know in the comments your favourite Unsolved Zelda mystery. I would love to hear from you. But without any further ado, let's dive into the unsolved mysteries of the Legend of Zelda. Okay, first of all, where did Majora's Mask come from? So Majora's Mask is one of the most enigmatic objects in the entire Zelda franchise, and Majora's Mask wastes no time by telling you that it's a very, very dangerous item. The Happy Mask salesman describes it as an artifact used in ancient, shadowy rituals, a mask so steeped in malice that it was sealed away to prevent a catastrophe. And that is pretty much all the game gives you. No location, no creator, no culture to point to, just whispers of an ancient tribe and a warning that the mask should have never have been touched. And that absence of detail is quite deliberate. It sets the tone for the entire story in Majora's Mask. The mystery also becomes even more intriguing when you look at how Majora's Mask behaves. Unlike most magical objects in the Zelda series, this mask seems to have agency. It manipulates people, it speaks, it imposes its will on the world around it, and to be honest, that raises uncomfortable questions. Was Majora a deity, a demon, a corrupted spirit from some forgotten age? Or was Majora's Mask simply an object that absorbed centuries of dark magic until it became something alive? The game never really answers, but the imagery, the patterns, the almost alien face, the shape of Majora's Mask suggests a force that doesn't entirely fit neatly into Hyrule's mythology. It feels older, stranger, and like something imported from a different place entirely. Then you've got the disappearance of the tribes said to have created Majora's Mask. The game frames them as ancient and long gone. It doesn't explain how they vanished or why they made something so dangerous. Did they misuse it? Did the mask destroy them? Were they wiped out by the very rituals they meant to control? Every interpretation leads to a different flavour of horror. Because the mask ends up in the possession of a wandering merchant, we're left with the very unsettling implication that even the most powerful artifacts in The Legend of Zelda can simply wash up in someone's backpack with no warning. Well, the game never gives you a concrete origin story, because the fear of the unknown is the whole point. It's a story about grief and chaos and a world on the brink. And by letting the mask exist without explanation, Nintendo has made it more mythic, more dangerous, and more alive in the imagination of the player. Even now, over 20 years later, the question of where did Majora's Mask come from, it does remain one of the most compelling unanswered riddles in the entire Zelda series. Well, next up, how did the Hero of Time become Hero Shade? Well, this is one of the most heartbreaking mysteries in the Legend of Zelda series, and that is the fate of the Hero of Time. After Ocarina of Time, Link is sent back to relive his childhood, robbed of the recognition and the legacy he earned as an adult. The closing moments of Majora's Mask imply that he eventually grows up in this alternate timeline, far away from Hyrule's future, but nothing in the game tells us what becomes of him. It's only in Twilight Princess generations later that we receive a clue. A spectral warrior known as Hero Shade. He appears, is bitter and restless, and carries regret that he never resolved in life. In a quiet and devastating reveal, he calls Link "my child," confirming he's the Hero of Time's lingering spirit. The transformation from legendary hero to a wandering ghost raises more questions than answers. So why couldn't he move on? What regret weighed so heavily on him that he remained tethered to the world as a skeletal ghost? The game certainly hints at an answer. Despite saving Hyrule, he never passed on his knowledge. Because he returned to the childhood timeline, no one in his world knew what he accomplished. History forgot him. His techniques, his legacy, even the courage he exemplified. None of it survived. There's also a more personal tragedy woven into this mystery. The hero of Time's journey is defined by loneliness. A boy ripped from childhood, separated from his fairy companion, sent across timelines and ultimately set adrift in a world where no one knew who he truly was. Becoming the hero's shade is a reflection of the isolation he lived with. Even in death, he's still searching for a connection, still looking for someone who's going to listen, learn, and carry on the traditions that he had no chance to share. And what makes this mystery powerful is Nintendo never depicts the moment of his death, or the years leading up to it. They leave that space open for the player to imagine, and to fill in the emotional gaps. The hero's shade is proof that even the greatest heroes can be forgotten by history, but their impact can live on through others. By teaching his techniques to Link in Twilight Princess, he finally feels peace, because someone has finally understood him. Well, next up, we've got what happened to the Zonai. So long before Link ever sets foot in Hyrule, the land is already littered with the ruins of a lost civilization, the Zonai. Their architecture is unmistakable. Spiral dragon motifs, massive stone labyrinths, and ruins tucked deep in the wildest parts of the world. The sheer scale of their structures suggests a powerful, highly advanced culture, yet Breath of the Wild treats them like a whisper. NPCs speculate about them, but no one has answers. The Zonai has already vanished by the time modern Hyrule rises, leaving behind only questions carved in stone. What makes the mystery of the Zonai intriguing is the sense of the contradiction that they embody. The ruins suggest a people obsessed with courage, strength, and the divine, symbols commonly associated with the Triforce itself. Their designs often feature dragons and owls, iconography tied to ancient deities. Yet for all of their apparent power and influence, there isn't a single intact Zonai settlement, or at least not one that we can see. No living descendants, no recorded history. Their absence is so total that even the Sheikah, another ancient technologically advanced race, seem to know nothing about them. And this absence invites plenty of speculation. Were the Zonai wiped out in some catastrophic war, a calamity predating even Calamity Ganon? Or did they fracture and scatter until their culture dissolved? Or did they ascend, evolve, or retreat somewhere beyond the physical world? The games provide fragments, strange relics, imposing maze-like structures, but never really enough to build a definitive picture. The result is a civilization that feels more mythic, but never enough to build a definitive picture. Their mystery also serves a narrative purpose. It gives Hyrule depth across time. The world feels layered, with each era rising on the bones of the one before it. The Zonai embody the idea that the past is always larger and more complicated than the present realises. By refusing to explain what happened to them, Nintendo gives players the thrill of discovery without any of the closure of answers. The Zonai remind us that history is not clean. It's not a linear story, but it's a puzzle box where some of the pieces were long lost before we ever arrived. Well, next up, we've got what is the Triforce. So for an object so central to the Zelda universe, the Triforce is surprisingly poorly understood. Nearly every game treats it as the ultimate source of divine power, a relic left behind by the three golden goddesses at the moment of creation. It grants wishes, shapes destiny, and determines the balance of the world. And yet for all that importance, the Triforce is still one of the most ambiguous artifacts in the Legend of Zelda series. What is it beyond its symbolic shape? How does it choose the people worthy of touching it? And why does its power seem to shift from era to era? Even within the games, it often feels less like an object and more like a supernatural force. One of the strangest things about the Triforce is the way it behaves. Sometimes it appears as a physical object, resting in a sacred chamber beneath the gods. In other times, it splits itself into three pieces that embed directly into the bodies or the spirits of chosen individuals. In some games, it's an artifact that can be stolen or broken. In others, it seems absorbed into the world, existing only as a concept. And these contradictions are all part of the mystery. The Triforce changes form depending on the age and the story being told, and it makes it feel more like a living myth rather than a magical item with fixed rules. Equally mysterious is the way the Triforce chooses its holders. Courage, wisdom, and power are supposed to determine who receives which piece, but the mechanics of that choice are never really made clear. Does the Triforce respond to destiny, to moral alignment, to the needs of the era? Even characters within the game speak of it in reverent uncertainty. The idea that it can shape the world through the wishes of its bearer raises pretty deep questions. If the Triforce can rewrite reality, why doesn't it eliminate evil entirely? Why does it allow the cycle to repeat? The myth tells us that the goddesses left it behind as a symbol of their essence, but symbols don't typically bend time and fate. So it can represent hope, temptation, balance, or destiny, depending on the story. By refusing to define it in concrete terms, Nintendo allows the Triforce to remain a storytelling anchor without boxing it into strict lore. In a sense, it's the greatest mystery in the Legend of Zelda series. It's an artifact that sits at the centre of the universe, shaping every major conflict, while still leaving players with far more questions than answers. Okay, next up today, let's have a look at what is the Windfish. So the Windfish is a major mystery, partly because its existence blurs the line between a dream and reality. In Link's Awakening, the Windfish is introduced as a slumbering deity whose dream has created the entire world of Koholint Island. Everything Link knows, the beaches, the villages, the dungeons, the people, they exist only because the Windfish is still asleep. But the game never explains what the Windfish actually is. Is it a god? Is it a guardian spirit? A cosmic dreamer drifting through another layer of reality? The story presents it with the same matter-of-fact mythic tone as many Zelda deities, but the specifics are left intentionally vague. What makes the mystery deeper is how little the game reveals about the Windfish's origins or purpose. Why does it dream entire worlds into existence? Are these dreams random, or does each dream have meaning? Does the Windfish travel from world to world, creating new islands every time it sleeps? Even its physical form, looking like a whale adorned in majestic celestial patterns, suggests something ancient and benevolent. Link's journey is framed as a heroic quest, yet the emotional weight comes from realising that waking the Windfish is going to erase the entire dream universe, raising questions about the nature of reality and the moral cost of fulfilling one's destiny. Thematically, the Windfish feels like Zelda's most direct meditation on the fragility of worlds. Unlike other Zelda deities who intervene in a clear, tangible way, the Windfish exists mostly as a presence, an unseen force whose dreaming sustains everything. It doesn't guide Link or explain itself until the very end, and even then, its words only offer philosophical riddles. This ambiguity transforms the story from a typical hero's journey into something a little bit more introspective. The Windfish remains a mystery because I think that is the entire point. The game invites the players to question what makes a world real and whether a dream can carry as much emotional truth as in waking life. By never defining the Windfish too clearly, Nintendo preserves the story's sense of wonder, but also sadness as well. Well, next up we've got what happened to the Sheikah. The Sheikah have always been one of the most intriguing groups in the Legend of Zelda games, an ancient tribe of shadowy protectors sworn to serve the royal family. They invented advanced technology, mastered stealth, and shaped some of the most important moments in Hyrule's history. And yet, despite their importance, they repeatedly vanish from the story just as suddenly as they appear. By the time most Zelda games begin, the Sheikah are either a fading memory or an endangered remnant. Their once great civilization are reduced to scattered clues: the eye symbol, forgotten shrines, abandoned gadgets. So what actually happened to the Sheikah? Well, Ocarina of Time hints the Sheikah were nearly wiped out during past conflicts, possibly when Hyrule's rulers turned against them, or when their enemies sought to eliminate the kingdom's most capable defenders. The existence of the Shadow Temple, filled with torture devices, execution chambers, and imprisoned spirits, suggests that at some point the Sheikah were involved in the darkest tasks that the kingdom required. Whether they chose that path or were forced into it remains ambiguous, and that ambiguity is a major part of their mystique. Then Breath of the Wild complicates the story even further. Suddenly, the Sheikah appear again, this time as a divided people. One branch, the Loyalists, live quietly in Kakariko village, still devoted to the royal family. The other branch become the Yiga clan, a faction that rebels after centuries of distrust and mistreatment, and their split demonstrates how deep the scars run in Sheikah history. They were exploited, feared, and marginalised despite their role in defending Hyrule from countless threats. When their miraculous guardians and divine beasts were sealed away by a panicked monarchy, it effectively erased their contributions once again, leaving their society fractured and, crucially, directionless. What keeps this mystery alive is that Nintendo never really provide a clean, official explanation for the Sheikah's disappearance across the different games. In some eras, they've dwindled into a single elder. In others, they've splintered into rival factions. In others still, they seem to fade entirely from existence. That inconsistency is a reflection of a tribe that lives in the margins of Hyrule's history. Their story is one of sacrifice, secrecy, and erasure. So much of their past is left unspoken, and the Sheikah remain one of Zelda's most powerful symbols of a lost knowledge. Well, next up we've got Link's parents and family questions. For a character who's saved the world countless times, Link remains one of the most mysterious protagonists in gaming. We don't really know much about him or his family. Across the series we learn almost nothing about his parents or his lineage. Some games give tiny fragments. Ocarina of Time reveals Link's mother died during the Hyrulean Civil War, leaving him in the care of the Great Deku Tree. Skyward Sword shows a childhood home but no parents in sight. In Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild he's raised by guardians or appears to live entirely on his own. For a franchise so focused on the cycles of heroes and legends, the absence of parental figures is actually quite striking. This mystery shapes Link's identity in subtle ways. The orphan hero destined for greatness. But unlike other stories that foreground that trope, Zelda rarely even acknowledges his isolation. That silence leaves a lot of emotional space for players to interpret who Link is and what he might have lost. Did he grow up longing for answers? Did he ever know his parents' names? Is his courage partly shaped by having to define himself without a family history? Well, the games never really say. The timeline also complicates things further. If links across the ages are meant to be spiritual successors rather than literal descendants, then the role of family becomes even more ambiguous. Each link seems to arrive in a world fully formed, destined for heroism without the usual generational ties. Some fans theorise that Link might be a recurring soul or a chosen vessel selected by Goddess Hylia. Others believe his family line exists, but are purposefully hidden to keep the focus on the legend rather than personal biography. Link is both a legend and a person, both iconic and strangely undefined. By never giving us clear answers about his parents, Nintendo preserves the sense that Link belongs to the world of The Legend of Zelda itself, shaped more than destiny, shaped more by destiny and the land around him than by any bloodline. Well, final mystery today, and let's have a look at what happened to Navi. Navi is one of the most recognisable companions in The Legend of Zelda, a constant presence throughout Ocarina of Time, guiding Link through childhood and adulthood alike. She's Link's first real partner, one character who witnesses every moment of his journey, and that's why her disappearance is so sad. At the end of the game, after Ganondorf is defeated and Link is sent back to reclaim the childhood that was taken from him, Navi quietly flies away. Navi's departure sets the entire story of Majora's Mask in motion. Link's quest in that game begins with him wandering the Lost Woods, searching for a friend who departed. It's heavily implied to be Navi, yet she's never seen again, never mentioned directly, and never given closure. Why did Navi leave? Was her task simply complete? Did she return to the Great Deku Tree? Did she vanish because the timeline reset, leaving her without purpose? Or that she left because Link no longer needed her, and she didn't want to disrupt the childhood he'd been restored to? Well, this mystery feels quite personal. Navi is a friend. Her sudden departure creates a lingering sense of melancholy that permeates Majora's Mask and colours how we remember Ocarina of Time. The game never suggests anything tragic happened to her, but that ambiguity creates its own emotional weight. Navi represents the people and relationships we lose, not through conflict, but through time. Giving Navi a definitive ending would diminish the poignancy of her disappearance. Instead, the games let her remain a memory, one that Link carries forward, and one that players still wonder about years later. She's a reminder that not every friendship lasts forever. Sometimes people who guide us through our most defining moments, well, they simply move on. Well, finally today, let's have a look at why Zelda needs mysteries. So for all the timelines, legends and lore diagrams that Zelda fans have assembled over the years, one simple truth remains. Zelda is not a series designed to give you every answer. It's a creative choice Nintendo has stuck to since Link's first outing. Mystery is baked into the Legend of Zelda series DNA. From the moment the original game drops you into a field with no guidance, the message is clear. This world is bigger than you, older than you, and full of secrets you may never fully understand. Mysteries also give the world its depth. When you stumble upon a forgotten ruin or hear vague references to an ancient tribe, your imagination does the rest. Zelda thrives on letting players fill in the blanks. If the games explained every race, every artifact, every lost civilization, Hyrule would start to feel small, boxed in, and overdefined. By leaving gaps, Nintendo gives the world a sense of history that stretches far beyond the boundaries of any single game. It allows the player to participate in the storytelling, fans becoming interpreters, theorists, archaeologists. The Zelda community itself becomes part of the legend. Debates about timelines and theories about Majora, speculation about the Zonai, none of this would exist if the game spelled everything out. The mystery creates conversation and a sense of collective discovery that has kept the series alive for nearly 4 decades. And the mysteries keep Zelda feeling magical. Magic isn't magic when it's over-explained. The Triforce loses its symbolic power if it's reduced to mechanics. The hero's shade is less haunting if his entire life is documented, and Termina becomes less surreal if its metaphysics are all mapped out. Zelda's greatest strength is that it evokes feelings, wonder, Nostalgia, melancholy, and awe without ever dissecting every element that causes them. The unknown is what makes the world feel alive. You know, many franchises increasingly focus on lore dumps and cinematic universes. Zelda stands apart. It's willing to embrace that ambiguity. It trusts us, the player, to accept that not everything needs an answer. And that is why people are still debating the origins of Majora's Mask, the fate of the Hero of Time, or the disappearance of ancient civilizations. Well, let me know what you think in the comments. You know, what are your favourite unsolved mysteries in The Legend of Zelda? Have I covered them here today, or have I missed them? You know, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. But that is it for this video today about the unsolved mysteries in the Legend of Zelda series. And as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. So if you can subscribe and like the video, that would really help me get the word out about this video, other videos, and also Triforce Times itself. And if you enjoy Triforce Times content, then you can get more content, you can get early access and exclusive content by hitting that join button down below and signing up to a YouTube membership, and you can select a membership that is right for you. Well, thank you so much for watching. As always, it has been an absolute pleasure to present this video to you today. This is probably the last video I'm going to get out before the holiday season, so wherever you are in the world, you know, whatever you celebrate, I hope you get a chance to rest and relax over the next few weeks. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and a huge thank you from me for watching in 2025. It's been an absolutely fantastic year, and I am super excited to come back in 2026, and I'm planning on putting out loads of content in 2026, so look forward to that. So thanks again for watching, enjoy the holiday season, and I'll see you very soon. Well, thank you so much for watching the video, but today I'd like to let you know about the Triforce Times store. If you like Triforce Times content and you want to get some merchandise, then browse the online store today. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and loads more in all shapes and sizes and colours. Also, if you didn't see something on the store that you want, then let me know in the comments. Comment on the video and let me know what you want to see in the merch store, and I will make it happen. So if you enjoy Triforce Times and want to go above and beyond to support, then the store is a great place to do that. And also, you're going to get some high quality merchandise as well, so check out the Triforce Times store today with a selection of merch below each video. And you can also check out the store link in the description if you'd like to browse the whole store. But this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patreon or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it's time to go back to the video.